recently, while I was in a mental institution, they diagnosed that I have a new thing called Asperger's syndrome.
Asperger's syndrome, named after Austrian pediatrician Hans Aspergers, is a condition on the autistic spectrum. It's hard to define people with Asperger's, which leads to them being stereotyped. Probably the most popular of these is Dustin Hoffman's Academy Award-winning performance in Rain Man, portraying an autistic savant.
You act weird, we don't get in. Listen to me?
Yeah.
I want you to look normal. As normal as possible, all right? Look, just Raymond, put your hands down. Don't rock and moan.
4 minutes
just
to walk.
Shut up, Raymond. Just shut up and stand there.
Yeah.
Raymond, don't rock and moan.
Yeah.
Put your hands down.
Sample.
That's it.
Oh, boy.
That's it. You blew it. You don't get to see your program. It's finished.
1 minute to walk.
1 minute to Wapner. 1 minute to Wapner. 1 minute to Wapner. I had you in there, Ray. You were in there. Defendant, plaintiff, you had it all. They are in there making legal history, Ray. Legal history.
Oh, boy.
What is going on out here?
I'm sorry, ma'am. I lied.
It's gonna be on.
I'm very sorry about that. That man right there is my brother. And if he doesn't get to watch People's Court in about 30 seconds, he's going to throw a fit right here in your porch. And you can help me, or you can stand there and watch it happen.
The success of the movie and Hoffman's performance made the character of Raymond Babbitt somewhat of a cultural icon, referenced numerous times in media outlets, including parody.
And I hope you're looking after your brother, Raymond.
5 minutes to monsters. 5 minutes to monsters. Gotta see Herman. Gotta see Herman. Gotta see Herman.
While Raymond isn't of himself an offensive portrayal, it does narrow people's ideas of how someone on the autistic spectrum acts and how they tend to be characterized. They're socially isolated but geniuses. They're ignorant of social cues to the point of rudeness, be it deliberate or unintentional. Yet, that isn't all there is to people on the spectrum or with Asperger's syndrome, as they can fall under several different characteristics.
I will now list some of the traits of an Aspie. Number 1. I find the world very confusing and chaotic, because my mind is very literal and logical. 2. I have trouble understanding the expressions on people's faces. When I was younger, I made a book to help me when I was confused. 3. I have bad handwriting. Am hypersensitive, clumsy, and can get very concerned. 4. I like solving problems. Ivy said this is a good thing. And finally, number 5, I have trouble expressing my emotions.
Not that intelligence is a negative trait, but people assume those with Asperger's tend to be arrogant or extremely sanctimonious. One of the most egregious examples of this is Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory.
So how's Amy?
Amy's changed. I might have to let her go.
Oh, no, why?
I thought she was a highly evolved creature of pure intellect, like me. But recent events indicate that she may be a slave to her baser urges, like you.
Just gonna skip over that insult?
What insult?
However, his diagnosis has never been confirmed by the show, despite his actions heavily leaning towards it. Big Bang co-creator has stated that it would make the sitcom come off as too serious with a diagnosis, but this feels like a disservice. It's as if Asperger's isn't a common thing in everyday life and something that people don't live with.
I think there is a certain amount of representation, but it's all very stereotyped. Like when I thought I might have it, one of the first things I thought was I'm not a science genius. Like, because I read The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, and he's very good at maths and physics. And then there's Sheldon Cooper, who, of course they never say that he has it, but he shows all the traits, like it's very, very obvious. And I just didn't see myself in any of those people. Yeah, I just didn't see it. And of course, like, it's an extreme case. And I do think that it's important to still show those people, to still have them there, especially the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. I think it raised a lot of awareness and understanding. I think it's very important that it was written, but I think there needs to be more of a varied representation. It seems to be very much one type of person with Asperger's syndrome that's shown. And I think for the people who are growing up with Asperger's, if they don't see themselves in that, they might not. To say that I have this condition that makes me different to other people, but I'm not excelling with it like everyone else seems to, that's very much a self-esteem killer, I think. One example, though, is Tina Belcher from Bob's Burgers, because in the first episode they mention that she's autistic. Now, that's never brought up again, and I don't know if they actually meant it, or I don't know what their intention was in saying that, actually, because it's very kind of throwaway and it's never brought up again.
She's autistic. She can't help it.
Yeah, I'm autistic.
So I don't know what they were kind of doing with that, but then she's a completely different thing again, and I think it's really good to have her there. One, because she's a woman, and all the other representations are of men. So, and I do know that more men are diagnosed than women, but I don't think that that is necessarily representative of how many women have it versus how many men have it. I think that's just the way it happens. But it's good to have her there because she's not this maths and physics genius. She's not an idiot savant, basically. She's just a normal person. But she's also really relatable to so many people who are neurotypical, like not necessarily on the spectrum. And I think it's really important to have her there because she is quirky and different. She does have this difference. Like, for example, she's very honest. She doesn't seem to have a filter, really, which is meant to be a trait of Asperger's syndrome, not really having that filter. But she's also endearing. She's extremely endearing. And that's not to say that the other characters aren't endearing, but she is in a different way. So I think it's good that she's there, but I think there needs to be kind of more of that.
So, Tina, you going out for cheerleader? That's exciting.
Yeah, at wrestling matches, cheerleaders are only 10 feet from the action. When things get sweaty, that's the splash zone.
A character from a sitcom that more blatantly seems to have the condition is Abid Nadir from Community.
Okay, if I could just take this time to share a few words of sarcasm with whoever it is that took this pen. I want to say thank you for doing this to me. For a while, I thought I'd have to suffer through a puppy parade, but I much prefer being entombed alive in a mausoleum of feelings I can neither understand nor reciprocate. So, whoever you are, can I get you anything? Ice cream, best friend medal, anything? Okay. Sarcasm over. You're last up, Shirley. Dump your comedically huge bag and end this.
He's not your typical portrayal either. He's smart in specialist areas, but not extremely intelligent. He also challenges the idea that they're introverts, as he says himself.
I got self-esteem falling out of my butt.
It's part of who he is, and it defines a lot of his characteristics, but he is shown as being incredibly competent and intelligent, and very, in a way, he's socially awkward, but he's understanding in a way that wouldn't be too obvious. He reads things that other people wouldn't pick up. Like, I think it works so well because he's not very insecure. He's not very, he's not full of self-doubt. He knows who he is and he works with that. Plus the fact that, he's a pop culture spewing guy.
He's a character with Aspergers, but he's not almost played like he's just weird for the sake of being weird, like Sheldon, or he's incompetent or something like that. He's incredibly intelligent. There's even times in the show where he uses the Asperger's itself to its advantage, which was some of the most clever parts of the show. Like,
one of the most important things about him was that he didn't have Pinocchio syndrome. He didn't wish, he wasn't like, I really, if only I could have an emotion chip and be like all the normal boys and girls. He was what he was, and he was okay with it, and it was up to other people to figure out how to deal with him. And I something about it just rang with me, and I was like, I don't want to let these people down ever. They don't get a lot of role models on TV, and I know how important that is.
It's not just fictional characters that are needed for positive representation, however. There are celebrities with the condition that could be used as role models.
Usually when I see or hear that like certain celebrities have had either were diagnosed with Asperger's or there's a high possibility that like past celebrities did, I guess there's usually kind of there's a sense of comfort with it, like that again there's these people who've done these great things and didn't let even though some of them were didn't know it, they still didn't some of them knew it, some of them didn't. Either way, they didn't let what they felt different about them stop them into achieving great things. Like even some example of someone like Dan Aykroyd, he recently came out of the Asperger's closet to a degree, and basically saying that he himself had it, like, and how comfortable he was with it, and how he felt comfortable to be able to just like pretty much just out and say who he was, what he had, like, and it gives you an overall sense of kind of peace that you're not really that different from anyone else.
I usually find out about celebrities who have it from random lists that pop out of nowhere, and I'm just like, oh, I never. Like, most of my examples are like, I never knew that. 3 seconds later, that makes a lot of sense. Like, you sent me a list of some of them. One of them that was like the biggest non-surprise of my entire life was Satoshi Tajiri. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. The creator of Pokemon. And the fact that they found that out, I was like, yeah, the guy spent his entire childhood collecting bugs and created one of the most convoluted, essentially hunting a dogfight series of all time, with all the energy things and experience. And I was like, yeah, this is someone who puts way too much attention to detail, did this series. Yeah. It makes way too much sense that he is, yes.
Representation is needed, not just to give people morale, but to avoid traits being misrepresented for ulterior motives. An infamous example of this is the work of Dr. Andrew Wakefield, who composed a controversial study that linked autism with vaccinations.
He basically demonized it in order to make a point, you know, that people with AS, that I don't know how to say this in the right way, that like basically if your children are vaccinated, they will have horrible, terrible lives, which is not a very fair thing to say. Like, I'm not saying that Asperger's isn't, or autism more specifically, isn't a struggle. It is, but the way that people try to demonize it in the media sometimes, well, beforehand, this was the 90s, I do think it's becoming more wrong.
It was later discredited, but the damage had been done. If a broader and more comprehensive understanding of the spectrum had been in the mainstream consciousness, this could have been avoided.
I just think that there's more variety. Maybe people who are female, who are of different color, maybe who are disabled in other ways. Like, you could show different things. Like, there's a lot of comorbids along with Asperger's syndrome. So that could be dyspraxia, dyslexia, anxiety disorders, ADHD. Like, there's so much there. People very rarely just fit this kind of narrow definition of I'm this one thing, and it characterizes everything. And I think that people who are shown with Asperger's syndrome, it's their whole identity. Their whole identity is based on this condition and how it affects them. And there's so much more to people than that with a disability, with any illness. There's more to them than that, obviously. So yeah, I suppose it's those two things, like more variety and just not letting it completely characterize everything about them.
Asperger's syndrome and autism is far from being wholly represented, but it's certainly coming into its own as a condition that the public recognizes. Once we come to grips with this condition as a society, we can truly turn a new thing into an old.
Dr. Bernard Hasselhoff says my brain is defective, but one day there will be a cure for my disability. I do not like it when he says this. I do not feel disabled, defective, or a need to be cured. I like being an Aspie. It would be like trying to change the color of my eyes.
I do think it's becoming more wrong. I just think that with more representation in our media, in our TV shows, in our studies, in our celebrities, and people we admire, it could be becoming less stigmatized and more understood.